What is going on, everyone? It's been a long time. I haven't done a live stream in probably a week and a half, 2 weeks. But you know me. If I'm going to come on here, I'm going to bring on somebody who's worth our time and somebody who uh, is as articulate as me, if not better. But he's very well known around YouTube and Twitter. Everybody knows who Rohan Chakravarthi is. He actually has his own YouTube channel. He's a writer for. Let me remember this. Hold on a sec. It's 49er Web Zone. Like I said, he's very well known around YouTube, around Twitter. One of the nice, young, smart, articulate minds that are in the game right now when it comes to reporting all things 49ers. So let me introduce my man Rohan and bring him onto the stream.
What's up, Aaron? How you doing today?
Good. How you doing, man? Sorry about the these intros, man. I have to write them down or something. I can't do them. I don't know how some people could just like rattle something off and it's all perfect. Every time I do an intro, botch mania, man. That's great.
What I do, I just don't think and I just speak and hope it comes out good. Because I get you. I get you.
I feel like I overthink them all the time. I want to say what's up real quick to Norborder Sports. He was in here before the stream started. And he said, I have a really nice new lid. He's a great
supporter for everybody. I've seen him.
Hell yeah. I just met him a couple weeks ago, or about a week ago. He's friends with 49er Minded. They actually do a hip hop show together.
That's the one I tuned into. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't really got into it yet as far as because I have a lot of limited, like I'm very much like, I like all like the popular people, like your Biggies and your Tupacs and stuff. So I'm not really into like, and 49er Minded's a little older than me, so he knows a lot of that like late 80s rap too. So I can't really say that I know a lot of it just because what I listen to is very selective. But we're not here to talk about hip hop. We're here to talk about the 49ers and everybody who's watching at the moment or who will be watching eventually, whether it's live or on replay. Let's just get to the big elephant in the room, Deebo Samuel situation. He has scrubbed the 49ers off his Instagram, social media. No sign of the 49ers. Rohan, I'll just ask you straight up. Are you worried? Is this something concerning, or is this just a contract negotiation ploy where him and his agent are just putting their feet in the ground?
Now, the timing is certainly interesting, right? Because right now it's April 7th. We're just 3 weeks away from the NFL draft. So obviously there's cause for concern to NFL fans because when you look at it, what is the most rational thing for those? If you're not extending Deebo Samuel, then a lot of people are probably going to look to trade him. And for trades, the most rational time to trade him is obviously before the draft because you can accumulate compensation not only this year, but next year. And then from that, you can trade down, get extra assets, and potentially, like if you're looking at the New York Jets, they have pick 10 right now in the NFL draft. You get maybe pick 10 and pick 38. You trade down a couple of times, and potentially you end up with 5-6 starting caliber players coming out of this draft that solidifies your roster and makes you a championship contender in 2022. So definitely, if you're looking to trade him, the time to trade him would be before the draft, which was what bring it in trade. But in my opinion, I'm not worried. It is probably a contract negotiation ploy, if anything football related. Obviously, he scrubbed 80 posts, scrubs the 49ers, unfollows them, and takes it out. I'm sure it's a contract negotiation ploy, but really the period of time when I'm going to start to get worried is near training camp because that's where the 49ers start to negotiate these deals and finalize them. Fred Warner, George Kittle, both of them, the two mainstays on this 49er roster that were signed recently to long-term extensions, were negotiated around that time. So I'm not necessarily worried currently, and I think a little bit of it will be relieved if he's on this roster after the draft.
Yeah, I've had Larry Krueger on my channel before from KNBR, and he always says one of the things you don't want to do when you have good players is give them away.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. You know, you finally have a roster that is as good as anybody in the leagues, can compete for a Super Bowl right now. Hopefully, even get a little farther with Trey Lance once he gets his footing. So the thought of them trading him away, to me, I can't say it's impossible because we saw it with DeForest Buckner. A lot of people on the 49ers didn't see that coming. Joe Staley talked about how it was a surprise to him that he was on the move, and DeForest Buckner said he really wanted to stay. When you have players like Deebo, Kittle, Bosa, Trent Williams, you just can't give guys like that away. Those are the anchors of your team. The only rational thing I could say, and people don't take this as I'm saying trade him. If you're going to trade a guy like Deebo away, you better get back a load of assets. I'm talking more than one first rounder, probably a couple seconds. I don't know, a player, something, because Deebo is in the prime of his career. He carried the 49ers last season down the stretch and into the playoffs. They don't sniff the playoffs if Deebo's not on this team last year. So
I think they're only winning 8 games if Deebo Samuel isn't in this. He single-handedly carried us in multiple games, and that was with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback, who relied on Samuel, which is why he got so much volume, right? 1,700 yards or whatever from scrimmage. So much volume. They utilize him as a running back. So he definitely has a good amount of value to this team, not only as a receiver, but also just as a versatile weapon. I know they had him even potentially go out there and return kicks at some point as well. So definitely.
I want to say thank you to No Border Sports saying smash that like button. Yes, please. If you could, it would be great. It helps YouTube find me. Chris Maldonado says, I don't want to trade Deebo. However, if we could, we package Jimmy in that trade. Yeah, everybody just wants to give Jimmy away. Yeah, I don't even want anything in return for Jimmy. Just send him on his way here. No Border Sports says, why do you think Deebo is pushing? The longer he waits, the more he could get paid. Yeah, the Niners, the thing would have been to get that deal done a lot sooner than they have, because the longer he stays out there not signed, the more the Niners are going to have to compensate him. So
I agree.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's so interesting, right? Because like the 49ers, I didn't think that they were going to deviate from the normal plans and probably just arrange it during training camp. But we've seen 3 major wide receiver deals happen this offseason. Maybe we didn't expect all 3 from their teams, but we expected extensions. And that's Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, who just occurred, and then obviously Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams got $65 million in guaranteed money, the most important thing. Tyreek Hill got $72 million or 72.5. And then Stephon Diggs, it's unknown. I think it was $70 million total. So it's in that $65 to $75 million range. And I think that's just a lot of money, right? That you're guaranteeing. And personally, with the way the 49ers structure contracts and with the amount of language, I don't know if they're willing to go that far, although the APY might be synonymous to these players. So that's why I think he's pushing it, because he probably wants more guaranteed money. And to Deebo's point, the longer he waits, DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Terry McLaurin, their contracts might finalize. The guaranteed money might increase even, and that just boosts Deebo Samuel's contract value even up. So that's why, because when more receivers are on the market, the market value increases because there are more guidelines that you need to set. And that's why I was a staunch proponent of signing Deebo Samuel this year as opposed to next year. I think if he doesn't get an extension this year, he shouldn't get an extension next year, for the sole reason of it'll be just too unfeasible financially. Justin Jefferson is on the market next year, and more extensions should come from other receivers, which would potentially push him into that $30 million a year range. And I think that that's just unfeasible for a receiver, given how receivers, just significant amount of receivers continuously come out of the draft every year now with 15 to 20 starting caliber weapons. So there's just an influx of talent. So for you to pay that much, it might be better to get a significant amount of capital should they not extend him this year.
And he is a physical player, super physical. Right. He plays with reckless abandon. The Niners have to protect themselves to some extent with this guy, just because, that's part of it's on them, because that's just the way Kyle runs the office. And he says he doesn't plan to change that whatsoever. But he's running up the middle. He's running sweeps. He's taking a lot of shots. So I could understand if the Niners maybe aren't they said before this, I saw something, I don't know if it's on Twitter, it said before the season, the Niners weren't too keen on extending him until he had a season like this season, just because of his injury history. I can't say he's injury prone, but he misses time. And this year was a big step up for him. He really kept his body healthy for the majority of this year. But you're right, man. you want to pay people and you want to compensate them for what they do to you, but there has to be a limit of what you're willing to give up just for the fact that, like you said, great receivers come out every single year, and you know, it, you handicap yourself with things you could do in your roster besides that position, especially with Bosa contract coming up. And I'm sure, what the, Niners will have some other players in a couple of years that are coming up on contract negotiations too. So yeah, I really want them to keep him. I think he's a hell of a player, and I don't want him to go anywhere. Like I said, hopefully this is just, posturing by both sides, and it'll all get figured out in the end. But right now, is it worrisome a little bit? Yeah, it's a little worrisome because look what happened with DeForest Buckner. But we'll see. We still got a lot of time between now and training camp, so anything could happen.
And
I can't say that he couldn't. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, just adding to the deadline, I do think that if we pass the draft, the chance of him being on this roster, not roster, but the chance of him signing an extension does increase in a way, just because if the 49ers feel that the tension between the two sides is too much to the point where they don't believe an extension could be possible, they'll want to capitalize. They're an organization known to capitalize, and they'll want to capitalize, and they'd probably ship him off, especially given teams might be willing to give up more capital in a market where receivers have gotten a lot. We saw Tyreek Hill go for a good amount of capital. We saw Devontae Adams go for a 1 and a 2. Now Deebo Samuel, just 26 years old. He's younger than both of them. I mean, his season last year is, I think it does warrant a trade of that caliber. And I mean, we've seen interest from other teams. The New York Jets have reportedly called in. The Miami Dolphins obviously would have had interest before Hill. So there's interest for sure for Deebo Samuel. And a lot of teams would want a player of that caliber. So yeah, if he passes the draft on this roster, I do think the chances of an extension do go higher for sure.
Yeah, well, let's hope that happens. No Border Sports says I want Russell Wilson type package of Deebo if we even think a trade. Yeah, you got to have a king's ransom in return if you're going to move off of him, because there's a lot of good receivers in this draft, and the Niners could double dip and get themselves more than one high end caliber player if they were to do a deal like that. But hopefully that doesn't happen and we don't have to think about it, because I think the fans and media alike would really kind of crap on the Niners for letting a guy like this go in his prime, especially when great players don't grow on trees. So when you have them, you need to compensate them and keep them. So hopefully this is all just posturing, and we're not talking about a trade tomorrow or before the draft, because I think that would really not bode well for the 49ers. It'd be a bad look personally for me. So Brian Culp and Ronnie Hurst are arguing with each other because they both have the same profile picture with Batman and the 49ers, which I think is hilarious. Carcast says, "What's up, my guys, Aaron and Rohan? How's it going, young man? Hope you're doing good with your YouTube channel." So I figure we move on to the next topic. And actually, before I go into the next topic, I wanted to, I had it here and I didn't even do it. I wanted to ask you about yourself, what you're doing, where people can find you, and, just stuff that you've done so far, cool things. I've seen you with your profile picture. I think it's a media pass or something. You're on the field in Santa Clara. So give people a quick little summary of what's going on with you in Rohan land.
So I do work for 49ers Web Zone. I write there. That's the main part. If you guys like articles, that's the main place where I produce content. I do try and produce daily content there, just give you guys a piece of what I think from just a perspective that's not necessarily as biased. I do also have my own YouTube channel, Rohan Chakravarthi. You can search it up on my Twitter page at Rohan Sports 27, like it says on the screen, and you can go hit the link in the description, and that should lead you to my YouTube. Those are my two main places. And obviously, I do like to tweet on Twitter. And any of you guys that want to just coordinate anything with me or just talk with me, be sure to hit me up on Twitter. You can DM me. You can just at me in a tweet. I love responding to people, and I just love interacting with one another, especially about 49er stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've seen you on for a while. It just didn't put two and two together. I don't know. For some reason, I've seen I thought you were older for some reason. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. I have no idea. And then I seen you were on with Bashar from 49er Minded. He mentioned you. I said, does he do a lot of interviews? He's like, not a ton, but if you ask him, he might. So I just kind of threw it out there, and you responded probably within like 2 minutes. So I was like, sweet. And I watch you, and you're articulate, you're quick-witted, you're, very well spoken on the 49ers. To me, that's awesome for people that are young, your age, that it's like we were saying off screen, like what a lot of us are doing now really wasn't a thing back in the early 2000s, because if it was, I probably would have did some type of journalism, something in college, or took in some sort of course or whatever to get myself into the journalism game. And YouTube wasn't a thing, all this other stuff wasn't a thing, content creating wasn't a thing. So I'm doing the best I can, kind of just having a YouTube channel for just for the sake of talking 49ers and networking and collaborating with people. But when I see young people like you doing stuff, it's awesome. I get a kick out of it.
Thank you. And for those of you guys in the chat, if you guys aren't subscribed, 49ers First Takes, you better hit that subscribe button for all of you guys still here. Thank you guys, because obviously the main reason I do it is not only because I want to talk about the 49ers, but to interact with you guys. So it's great. Be sure to subscribe to Aaron, one of the best dudes on this YouTube channel for sure.
I appreciate that. Yeah, to me, it's all about positivity and support. Everybody, I'd say, like I said, 99% of this Niners community is really supportive, and I've interacted and collabed with people that I never dreamed I would able to talk to on this deal. I have my friends that I talk to. One of them is right here, my buddy Jay in the Bay. He likes my red lights in the background. I appreciate that. I finally found something that isn't too. I tried to do the LED strips on the ceiling, but they kept peeling off, so I threw them out. But there's just a lot of great people in the community. Like, definitely. For instance, I met this young man the other day, and it's like every other day I'm either interacting with some other people on YouTube or on Twitter, wanting to collaborate, and I find it awesome. It's such an inclusive and accepting community. So I hope it continues for me, and I hope I can grow and connect with even more people.
Yeah, definitely.
So, as we know, the Niners are looking to kind of add some depth at the wide receiver position. They signed Ray McLeod the other day, or last week, first week of free agency. Today they signed Marcus Johnson. Played for a couple of other teams, but most recently the Tennessee Titans.
Right.
Kind of a speedy wide receiver, I guess, to say the least. Productive NFL receiver. He's not a total scrub. He's about 6'1", played for Tennessee last year. The Niners, before the offseason started, really only had about two people on the roster. And then, of course, we're waiting on Juwan Jennings if he's ever going to sign his exclusive rights deal. Yeah. I think. I'm not sure.
I think the exclusive rights has been signed, to my knowledge. I just don't think the extension following that has been signed yet. But okay. I believe that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were looking. I mean, they had some room to make some moves. They lost Trent Sherfield, and I can't think of his name. The other guy who never played. We kept re-signing him and letting him go. I always forget his name. But
I don't remember either. Yeah.
Yeah, they've been making some moves. I mean, they have to ensure some depth in that wide receiver position. I still think it might be something that they draft this year. I just don't think it would be early. But
yeah, I agree.
You can always add to a position, no matter if you think you have enough players or not. You never have enough. I mean, look at the running back position on this team. Every year we think we have enough. We go into the season, everybody gets hurt. So
exactly.
You could never have enough great players on your team. And if the Niners are always big on adding depth and supporting, the team with as much depth and not being so top heavy on their team, like say maybe the Rams are. But yeah, looks like a decent signing. What's your opinion on him?
Yeah, so I mean, Marcus Johnson, he came in for a visit earlier this week. He signed today. like you said, around 6'1", 207, a good amount of speed on him. I know a lot of people were talking about his 40 time back at the combine. I think in 2015 he ran a 4.39, so he does have a good amount of speed on him. He's like an ideal sized wide receiver, but like you said, production wasn't heavy that last year. He caught 9 passes for 160 yards, playing in 7 games for Tennessee. The main place where I do believe that he can provide some impact is as a special teamer. He returned nine kick returns for 179 yards to my belief, around 20 yards per kick return. I think that that provides value because the one thing a lot of people have been concerned about, another receiver you said, Ray McLeod, the one concern around Ray McLeod was the fumble issue. Would he be fumbling too much as a returner for the 49ers, which we've already faced with guys like JaMychal Hasty? I know Trenton Cannon fumbled in the Week 4 game, which cost us the game, essentially, because that was the turning point. And so is fumbling going to be another issue? And I think one thing I've been suggesting over the last couple of weeks is mitigate Ray McLeod to specifically a punt returner. Make him that's, I think, his ideal value. You made a game in one thing, have him hone in the skills for one specific position rather than having to carry the responsibility of 2 things, and have another player who can provide potential on offense or defense. Like one guy in the draft was Marcus Jones, but here Marcus Johnson provides some potential as a special teamer, as a kick returner. I don't necessarily know if he makes the 53-man roster, but the one thing that Kyle Shanahan loves out of special teamers is, do you have the ability to play receiver? Do you have the ability to play a position on defense? Every single special teamer that makes the 53-man roster has to have or has to prove some way that they can play offense or defense. Shanahan doesn't like players who specifically play special teams, hence why a guy who was a fairly good returner for them, and Simba Webster, didn't make the roster over a guy like Travis Benjamin last offseason as the returner. So that's where I think Marcus Johnson does provide some value, is that he can be a receiving option. I think he high points pretty well for a guy of his size and of his speed. I think that that's a value that you can add alongside the deep threat type of status. So he does provide potential as a receiver. The 49ers have been able to shape receivers, at least in the recent future, pretty well. In the 3 starting caliber guys, they're fairly young. So I do think that they do have some potential with him as a backup receiver, but the special teams, I think it's another focus towards special teams. He could provide you some potential as a kick returner. That speed does help. And so that's kind of where I think the main value comes out of this deal, should he make the 53-man roster.
Yeah, Chris Maldonado and Brian Culp are both definitely weighing in on how seems like the Niners are really shoring up the special teams, which was a huge problem last year. Of course, we have a new special teams coordinator in Brian Schneider, as Jay in the Bay has reminded me. And they say you can win with two out of three. What is it? 2 out of 3 functions of your team: offense, defense, special teams, playing well. And the Niners special teams last year cost them in some games. So whether it's kickoff coverage or just somebody moving the ball when they get it. I mean, there was a lot of times where guys would just field the ball at the 10-yard line and do absolutely nothing with it. And it's just so aggravating sometimes because you put so much on your team, your quarterback, your offensive line, starting so far back. So hopefully the Niners field position will be better this year. Maybe they'll get a spark here and there with a nice return. Niners special teams seems like it's been kind of lagging behind for a while now. So hopefully with this whole rehab and retooling with a coordinator and all these pieces, we'll definitely see a difference. And yeah, I made a video earlier today about the new wide receiver, and I said, if he even makes the team, because we see a lot of these moves in March, April, come nut cutting time in August, these guys don't even end up making the team. So sometime I'll report stuff on YouTube, but I always preface it by saying if he's even on the team, because we might draft somebody that blows our doors off in the draft who's can do both and who's younger and cheaper. So we'll see. But I
agree.
I'm always big on the depth moves. That's the one thing with this roster I do like, is that we have pretty solid depth. You look at our linebacking core, our defensive line, now with the receiving and running back. I mean, this team, barring injuries, this team's pretty deep. Hopefully we don't have to test a lot of this depth during the year. But that's the one thing I will say about the 49ers and why, you could say how teams build differently. Some teams are top heavy and have really super elite players. Maybe the Niners are a step below that, but they always have a lot of good depth. So hopefully that stays. Hopefully we don't move on from anybody like a Dre Greenlaw or anything. Keep them all if you can, because you never know.
And I mean, the one thing the 49ers like is a kind of like a diverse kind of wide receiver room, right? When you look at it, yeah, you're right, GD5. It is a camp body, right?
It does look like a camp body.
Because when you look at it, right, the 49ers offseason program begins April 18th. OTAs begin May 23rd, 24th. So you do want to like a sense of the like who is going to be on your roster, at least the 90-man roster, before training camp and before the offseason program starts. And that's where they're going to start bringing in a lot of these players for visits, hence why they also brought in Malik Turner. But they also like a diversified wide receiver room, right? You have your acceleration guy in Deebo Samuel, who is kind of like an all-around receiver. Then your shifty route runner in Brandon Ayuk, a little bit of a nimble-bodied player, but good speed, good route running, and a player who can catch the ball, pretty sure hands. Then you got Jawan Jennings, a big-bodied receiver with the ability to block. Then when you look at it, Ray McLeod, one of the smaller receivers on the team, but great acceleration. This guy here, not Keyshawn Johnson. That is a practice squad player, but Marcus Johnson, 6'1", 207, ideal wide receiver size, good ability to high point. And then Keyshawn Johnson, a guy who we signed to a reserve future contract as another training camp body earlier in the offseason. A bit of a slower receiver, but another high point guy. So it's a diversified room. And so that's what I think the 49ers are just trying to achieve. They'll probably sign a couple of deep threat type of players as well to compete, but it is training camp bodies. That's why, though, I like the special teams intrigue of a guy like Marcus Johnson.
Definitely. Moses Martinez says, all I have to say is if Deebo gets traded, which I don't think he will, it will cause an uprising with the fan base. I totally agree with you, Moses. He says, just like what happened with Montana drama, that was messy. Yeah. Maybe not to the same level as Joe Montana, because the Niners got some Super Bowls out of that whole situation. But I definitely agree with, like I said, Larry Krueger says, don't give up on good players, man. When you have good players, keep them. Try to do what you can to keep them. You set a bad precedent if you can't come to deals and agreement with people, then you have to end up trading them. And then they, do well somewhere else. So, like I said, hopefully it's all posturing. We already touched on the Deebo thing, but I really hope it's just all posturing because, man, this team is like one or two players away right now for being in the Super Bowl. I mean, if Trey really ups the quarterback position,
right,
and maybe we get a little bit better on the back end and maybe another edge rusher, we're that good. So we'll see. I mean, like I said, it's a long time from now. We still have the draft. We haven't had any off-season programs yet or anything. So it is a little concerning to see a guy scrub his social media with any sign of the 49ers. People say, oh, you're overreacting. Really? I mean, it's a little sketchy looking. So
yeah,
we'll see.
I mean, it's funny because people said overreact. And then not only did Samuel unfollow the 49ers, he then did the whole scrub, which kind of took out the overreaction. Because, I mean, people do have a right to react to that. It is a fairly big thing. And it's interesting because, like, some 49er fans were defending it, while when the Arizona Cardinals quarterback, Kyler Murray, did it, everyone went on Kyler Murray. Everyone bashed him. Wow, that's a childish move. Wow, that's a terrible move. And then here, it's interesting because people are blaming for the overreaction when that just happened a month ago. And yeah, that situation seems somewhat resolved. All of Murray's stuff is put back. But like, until we hear anything, because obviously up until now, there was no prognosis on the extension talks. All we've heard is Deebo is going to be a 49er for a long, long time, multiple times from John Lynch. So this is kind of like the first news that we're hearing. So yeah, it does maybe call for some cause of concern, but obviously we wait for more news before reaching a prognosis, a full prognosis.
And Jay is just reiterating what a lot of us are saying. If we can get a haul for Deebo, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, let's do it. Jay, I feel you. I agree, but I hope that doesn't reach that point because it's just when you have good players, man, you just got to keep them.
Right.
I don't like this.
You have to replicate the thing, replicate the production as well.
And you don't, and it's not a guarantee you're going to replicate it. Mm-hmm. You might draft someone in the draft who you think is going to be bigger, better, stronger, cheaper, and the guy comes out as a complete dud, a complete bust. So sometimes going with the proven commodity That's why people say what the Rams do sometimes where they trade away draft picks and they go with the proven commodity. It's because they already know what they got. The draft's a crapshoot. These quarterbacks that came out last year and everybody's saying this guy's going to be this, and this guy has an equivalent to this player when he played, and then everybody played pretty much like garbage last year in all the quarterbacks. I'm sure Trey's going to have some hiccups when he plays this coming year. So the draft's a crapshoot. We do not know. Nobody knows. So that's why you got it when you got players and you hit on them, dude. You got to give these guys the money they deserve. But we're not the GMs. We don't run the team. So who the hell knows? 49ers worked out pass rusher Kimoka Toure today. I guess he was like highly touted coming out of the draft as like an edge rusher and has kind of not lived up to expectations. I don't know if he was a first or second. Was he a first round pick from the Indianapolis Colts and he just hasn't?
He was a second round pick in the 2018 draft.
Yeah, and they had him in yesterday. And a lot of people are saying this could be a good move. Another one of those under the radar kind of what is it, low risk, high reward type things. I would say do it. Yeah. Whatever. Insulate yourself with as much depth as you can in that pass rush room because you come at people in waves, man, and they're all capable pass rushers. At times last year when we were on, we looked pretty damn good. Even when Bosa was out of the game sometimes. So I still think the Niners need to hit edge in the draft. I think they'd be foolish not to, and I think they will, unless something falls through and somebody gets traded to us during the draft, which I don't foresee that happening. But like I said, the Niners are a couple players away, but they really could use a nice big edge rusher right now. But a guy like Kamoka, whatever his name is, I'd say why not? What is your opinion on him?
And so obviously the initial thought is why didn't he pan out? And a lot of people would think lack of production, but in reality that wasn't the case. In 2019, Toure had I think it was a ankle fracture or something like that.
Yeah.
In week 5 of the 2019 season. He also missed week 2 with the neck strain. So he had an injury riddled season in 2019 and obviously struggled a little bit coming back to shape in 2020. So I didn't really view those 2 years as beneficial in terms of his prognosis or in terms of just trying to see him as a talent. In 2018, his rookie season, he had 4 sacks in 14 games. I think that is a little more telling of where his production should go. And then in his first season, really fully acclimated back in 2021, 5.5 sacks in 13 games. And the reason that I like Kimoka Toure is because he already fits what the 49ers did with a guy like Arden Key last year. And what do I mean by that? I mean, look at the snap count. Kimoka Toure played just 27% of the defensive snaps last year for the Indianapolis Colts, yet he accumulated 5.5 sacks through a variety of speed moves, through a variety of even power moves. And I think the best way to complement a guy like Nick Bosa, who's mainly a power rusher at that 262-pound frame, is acquire a speed rusher right next to Nick Bosa that can operate outside of him and that can also serve as a true edge rusher. It's amazing that the 49ers find so many people that can be interdimensional and also work on the inside. But I also think it provides stability if you have an outside edge rusher, a person that's a real true edge rusher, unlike a Jordan Willis and unlike a Charles Omenihu, where you can have a real true edge rusher that you can at least count upon for a good amount of the season or a good amount of snaps at edge. And Toure, when you use him as a strictly pass rushing third down guy, I think that's where his value comes as. 5.5 sacks last year against on a defensive line that was pretty good. Now you're even upgrading at defensive line, and now you have the chance where you can preserve your body in a system that doesn't require a lot of snaps at defensive end outside of Nick Bosa. And that's where I think Toure's value will be. Good snaps, good pass rushing attempts, and his pass rushing prowess was shown. He had a very high pass rush rate last year, according to SIS.
I think there was only 2 other players. I think there's only 2 other players in front of him.
Right. I think it was 2 other players because I know his rate was around 13% last year, which is a good stat for the 49ers because guess what? Like you said, low risk, high reward. It won't cost that much because of his prior injury history. But the 49ers are a team that values the edge position more than other teams in the NFL, especially the depth. And on a 1-year deal or even potentially a long-term deal, given he's only 26, I think that this would be great value for the 49ers. And it might even push edge down on their down on their list for the draft, which allows them to potentially draft best player available in every
Mm-hmm.
position rather than having to go and get an edge at 61, even if it's not the best value.
Just want to say hi to my boy Rich from Kelts Chronicles, big time growing, relatively new YouTube channel. Fantastic guy.
I like that one too. I've tuned in before.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah.
Well spoken young man. Positivity all the way.
Yeah.
Him and my boy Jay in the Bay, two of the best to do it in the Niners community for sure. I need a little bit more of their positivity sometimes. I'm a New Yorker. I'm from Western New York. So my nephew's the same, where we're always glass half empty when it comes to the 49ers, where my boy Kelts and my boy Jay are always glass half full. It's just my personality too, though. I'm hard to please. I've been a Niners fan since 1989. I was 9 years old. I'm 42. I have a certain level of expectation
probably
as a fan. Yeah. So we haven't met it in a long time. So I get a little bit itchy, a little bit pissed off. So I need to have a little more positivity. I was being positive during the season. I was on Jay and the Bay's channel a couple times, and he was like shocked. I think we were talking about Jimmy, and I was saying, yeah, stay with Jimmy if they keep winning. And a lot of people are like, you're kidding me, right? You're going down the Jimmy route. I'm like, hey, listen, as long as we keep winning, keep them in there. So, and I'm not a Jimmy dude.
I get you. And because like, if I had a recording of myself while watching the games, I'm the worst. Obviously, after the games, I'll be obviously my regular level-headed self, where I can provide at least an unbiased analysis of what really went down. But during game, I get what you mean. Yeah,
I'm very whiny during games. Like I complain to myself, like, why isn't he doing that? Come on. And people are like, you all right in there? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Leave me alone. Like first of all, I watch games by myself because I'm miserable, because I'm so live or die. And I usually after games, people stream, like a lot of our 49er content creators. I'm so mentally beat after games. When I stream, people are like, you look really tired. I'm like, I am. Because I get so emotionally invested. That's how I've always been. I'm part of Sicilian, and my mom was born in Sicily. Italians are crazy, especially when it comes to soccer. I mean, they scream and yell and high five and swear at the television. I'm all of that. So I'm pretty intense. I'm trying to get better, though, man. I'm almost 43 years old. I got to calm down. I don't want to blow my heart out. So, but let's see here. So, speaking of, you said that if the Niners address this move, maybe with Trey, and they can push edge rusher down the pipe a little bit.
Yeah.
One thing that I keep going back to is everybody saying the Niners are going to draft the receiver. The Niners are going to draft an edge guy. I have the strangest feeling the Niners, if they do what you say with Trey, that they address safety in the second round. And because my question is, what would you do? Would you bring back Tart on a 1-year deal? Would you try free agency with whoever's left out there? Or would you go draft if that player drops to you in the draft?
Right. So originally, going into free agency, I thought safety was a position of need because the 49ers shored up the secondary with signing of Travis Ward. But right now, still on the roster with the safety group that we have, I only think there's one starting caliber safety. And that might be somewhat of a hot take. I know a lot of people are intrigued by Tarvarius Moore, but in my opinion, Tarvarius Moore's main thing was not his skill, but rather his athleticism. And I think the athleticism might take a little bit of a hit, at least early on, coming off a torn Achilles injury. Talanoa Hufanga, he is a good safety in the box, but unfortunately, he doesn't provide the type of athleticism the 49ers like at the safety position, because when you look at it, the 49ers, and when they view with how they view the safety position, they like interdimensional players, because Jimmy Ward, he's not necessarily just a free safety. I know that's what his position seems, but he plays a lot more strong safety than people realize. He likes to move from the nickel to single high to the box with the primary focus on the nickel and the box. And I think that that's where the 49ers really need to improve at safety. Get a guy who can work with Jimmy Ward and be interdimensional with him, be versatile, playing certain roles, because I think the 49ers currently don't have that on their roster. George Odom showed potential. He started in 7 games last year, but I think that was also a primarily special teams move. I don't necessarily think he's a starting caliber safety right now. And that's why I thought the 49ers should have definitely gone after safety in free agency. If you didn't want Jaquaski Tart back, which it seemed like they didn't just because of how the relationship ended, I think that you could have definitely gone out and gotten other safeties. I actually made a video where I said guys like Anthony Harris, who re-signed with the Eagles, Terrell Edmonds, who's still in free agency, Jabril Peppers, Keanu Neal, Jaron Kearse, DeMonte KZ, I think it's Deshaun Elliott, and even Jaquaski Tart. All of those guys, I think that's 8 guys that I named that were starting caliber safeties, and I think could be very well shaped in a 49ers jersey. And that's 8 guys that the 49ers could have gotten, and it would have been at a bargain price. Safety was a position of like a position where there was a lot of talent going into this free agency period and just not a lot of money dishing out to safeties. When you look at it, who was the main kind of safeties that were paid? When you look at it, really the price, Jaron Kearse, a very good safety in 2021, one of the best tacklers of any safety who played for the Dallas Cowboys, got only 2 years and $10 million at age 28. So safety was going to be like a very, very cheap price going into free agency, and the 49ers didn't address the position. So now, yeah, safety is a priority in the draft, and I do definitely see the safety position being in consideration at 61. A guy GD5 just said, Nick Cross, that's a guy who I liked. I took him at 62 in my latest mock draft. I think Nick Cross provides what I just said. The athleticism required to play the safety position in the 49ers defense. Ran a 4.34, but I think his in-tape game or his in-tape like style still plays fast. He's a good safety at 6'1", 210, 215 pounds, and I think that he's got the speed and also the talent to play safety alongside Jimmy Ward. But the main concern that I had, it wasn't around the offensive line going into free agency. It was at the safety position because the 49ers had a premier, like they had a prime way to upgrade the position or at least remain relevant at the position. And I thought that the 49ers decreased their talent at the position coming out of free agency.
Celts Chronicle says Tyron's still out there. Dream big. I wish. The Niners need playmakers in that secondary. That's the one thing the Niners don't have.
Yeah.
They got good linebackers. They got really good linebackers. They have a deep defensive line. Got a lot of good skill position players. But man, they don't turn the ball over, man. With that pass rush, you would think, especially in 2019, they did pretty well in 2019. I forget how many turnovers they forced, but they just on the back end, the Niners do not cause a lot of turnovers. Interceptions they just don't happen. So Tyrann Mathieu, I think that's going to happen. I think the Niners, that's way too pricey for them. A lot of these safeties that are in free agency, though, would you consider them an upgrade, or are they more of a lateral move? Like, just keep Tart if you're going to go that route. Is that what you're thinking?
Right. So the reason I didn't necessarily mean upgrade, I did think that it was somewhat of a lateral move, but the reason that you could consider them an upgrade is because of Tart's injury history, where he's played a predominantly around maybe 7, 8 games, sometimes 14 games at the most. He doesn't really ever play a full season, and he's also 31. So the 49ers, they kind of went in a way in which they tried to go younger this year. I was a proponent of bringing back Tart. I think him and Ward work well together, and I thought it'd be even more valuable if you drafted a safety this year because you could have a safety like a safety trio. The 49ers implemented 3 safety sets last year where they had a guy single high, they had a guy in the nickel, and they had a guy in the box, and it worked out well when Talanoa Hufanga was on the field for the majority of the time. Now imagine a guy even better than Talanoa Hufanga working with Ward and Tart. I thought that would be better, and it would at least ease the process for a rookie safety in this defense, which could present them with better, less challenges in their rookie year. Whereas if they're given more responsibilities as starting safety. Now, I think that they can still make it work with a good starting caliber safety if they draft well. But yeah, I thought a lot of other players, especially at their ages, would have been solid, at least lateral picks. I know they're different styles, like Terrell Edmonds. He's not really a great run defender, primarily a good guy in pass coverage at the safety position, if not one of the best in free agency. And so that's what another guy that I thought could very well could work well with Jimmy Ward, because Jimmy Ward is very good against the run. You have a guy great against the pass, a good safety tandem. So I thought that would have been an upgrade. The rest of the guys were mainly lateral moves, but still, I thought you get younger at the position, you still get talent, and you have a starting caliber option, so you don't necessarily need to prioritize a position going into the draft, and instead could draft best player available.
I mean, there's still time. They might very well make a move. D from the Deep Dig, a sports pod, says, "Do you really think Honey Badger would have a big price tag this deep into free agency with no deal done yet after a couple of visits?" I I do, just because I think he's
Yeah,
just head and shoulders above everybody else. I mean, there's like
yeah,
him, and then there's everybody else is down here. So I do. I mean, the Niners could take a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal. I mean, I don't know. The Niners right now, I'm so worried about Deebo Samuel. Like,
yeah.
they need to take care of their own stuff in house right now.
Hmm.
Um, with Jimmy on the books, man, it seems like
It's
a
tough.
lot of these things that all of us 49er fans are dreaming, like a Chandler Jones that we want, a lot of us wanted. It's just until he's off the books, I just don't see a lot of this stuff happening. And that's what's
Right.
really unfortunate about that situation. I don't really want to touch on the Jimmy stuff too much because I think it's
Yeah.
been beaten to death. But man, what a fump, just a complete mishap that's been.
It is. It definitely is because you had the chance to get him off the roster. And going back to just the 49ers, right? Obviously, like we all wanted these players. I didn't necessarily think they got it. I do believe the 49ers in that they executed their offense or their free agency plan. Go out, get a corner, and then shore up free agency with or shore up your special teams unit with these articulate signings. But now at the stage where you want to get your roster better, the problem with having Garoppolo on the roster currently is because you have to value signing a player against the cap hit or like the future implications of restructuring or extending a player. Because we don't have cap space, they don't seem primed to move Garoppolo currently. So not only do you have to do you have to see, is this player worth a certain amount of money? Because players are certainly probably want to ask more than they might be worth, if especially if they have interest from other teams. But you have to balance that with the value of harming yourselves in the future by restructuring players. I mean, we've seen it. D Ford is now going to have like $5 million in dead cap for the next 2 years. That does hurt you in the future. And I know a lot of people are saying the salary cap is going up. Well, guess what, guys? When the salary cap goes up, market value increases, and every other team also has their salary cap going up, meaning every other team is also going to be competitive. So it's not like, wow, this means that we can sign 5 more players or something at bargain prices. No, it means that the entire market for players is going up. You might
Yep.
see like replacement level players getting 5 to 8 million next year, not just at the quarterback position. And you might see backup quarterbacks going for as high as $10 million. So that's just how it works because that's what happens when the salary cap goes up. So that's what I don't like about that take. So you do have to
All right.
work against the future if you want to bring in a player right now because you just don't have the cap space to sign him with Garoppolo on the roster. I think that's kind of like the biggest issue, at least currently, because there's still talent available. It's just you can't really go out and get it at the moment.
People, I think I equate the salary cap going up and the market changing as when you compare a movie that came out in say 1981 and made had a box office of say like 350 million, and people are like, wow, that's really low. But if you like equate it to now, it could be like a billion or something.
Right.
Yeah, the market goes up, but then the price of players is going to go up. So really,
Exactly.
there's no advantage. It's not like the players' money, the want for contracts is going to stay low. No, the contract levels are going to go through the roof. Like you said, even replacement level players may be making $5 million a year. So
Right.
the cap is not like this. It's not Madden where like, oh, you can just sign everybody else and just give them really long contracts and then you don't have to worry about it. Eventually, if you kick the can down the road, you're going to have to pay for it. Unless you're the Rams, then they somehow never have to.
I mean, even this year they paid for it, right? They like
A
a
little
lot of
bit.
people point to Bobby Wagner and Allen Robinson. They lost a lot of starting caliber talent at
They
all 3
did.
positions. Like they lost Von Miller, Agbani Okoronkwo, and Sebastian Joseph Day, 3 valuable contributors to their defensive line, and have no replacement for them currently. They lost in the cornerback room. They lost Darius Williams, and now they're going to have Robert Rochelle, a 7th round or whatever round pick he was last year, now be their second cornerback. That's not really a good hope. I know you value Jalen Ramsey, but that just gives another target for the 49ers and other teams looking to exploit the Rams. You also lost 2 members of your offensive line, Andrew Whitworth to retirement, and you also lost Austin Corbett in free agency. That's another 2 positions that you still have to fill. I know Melboom's there, but you're decreasing in talent. And then they lost Johnny Hecker, a punter. So like you're losing a good amount of
Yep.
talent, which is where it hurts. The Saints lost Teron Armstead, arguably one of their most important players on offense, because they had to kick the can down the road, right? So, like you said, yeah, it is an issue for future implications for sure.
Rich from Celts Chronicles says, I feel like we might see a big trade on draft day. We aren't signing 9 dudes. How often are there 3-team trades on draft day? You know, it's funny that you say that, Celts, because I was thinking something today, sitting there, by myself, drinking my coffee in the morning. Like, the Niners could take what some of the compensation picks they're getting next year, and very well may trade up in this draft. We don't know. I'm not saying that they will. They probably won't, but they could. Especially if they see somebody. Especially when you say, Rohan, if like it's the best player available and they see somebody and they're there,
right,
and they think they have a chance to move up on them, you got to make that move. So yeah, we're not bringing 9 players to camp.
I agree. And especially with our cap space situation right now, right, where we don't necessarily have a lot of money. And if we want to keep Garoppolo, then we'd have to look at restructures, and we don't want to spend that much money. So I agree. And I think like the 49ers, they've definitely shown us that they can be aggressive, right? Last year, they traded back from Aaron Banks and used the extra capital to trade up to get Trey Sermon. I think they could do a very similar thing, trade down maybe a little bit from 61, then use some of your 6th and 7th round capital along with the extra pick you receive to trade back up into the 4th or 3rd round and select another starting caliber player in such a deep class.
Yeah, the draft is interesting because we don't have a 1st-round pick this year, but like I really enjoy day 2 and 3 for some reason. Night 1's cool, but it's like so short. Day 2 and 3, especially day 2, where the Niners have made some moves. It's always interesting to me. It's weird. The draft's kind of boring, but it's I don't know. It gives you hope. Like me and my nephew used to talk about this. We go especially when the Niners have been predominantly bad when they were not in the Super Bowl after the Harbaugh years. He goes, it's the only time of the year where we have hope. And then the season starts. And I'm like, exactly. Like during the draft, everybody's hyped and y'all look with this guy and look at what he can do when he runs this 40 and he's going to do this when he plays with so-and-so. And then of course the season starts and a lot of it doesn't happen, but the draft is an exciting time of the year for me. I might not be I haven't really followed a lot of stuff. So I'm not big on any of a lot of the guys coming out. That's why I'm kind of referring to you. But I am definitely looking forward to the draft. I'm going to do a little deep dive probably within the next couple weeks just to give me an idea for guys that the Niners are targeting, who they are and where they come from. But David McNews says, I am dreaming big, but I'd take an 8th rounder and a bag of nacho cheese Doritos for Jimmy. Me too, dude. And some Mountain Dew. I really love Mountain Dew. So if we can get some Mountain Dew in the trade, then let's do it. Aztec MC says, rest in peace, Deebo. Let's go, Miami. Hell no, dude. That's my brother's squad. I don't want them to get Deebo. My brother's a Dolphins fan. He said that he was telling me, he goes, the fan base, he goes, all the Fairweather fans, he goes, now all of a sudden they're selling out. They might sell out this year. And I was thinking that's kind of like the Niners when they moved to Santa Clara, when the Niners started putting a competitive
right. Jeez.
Yeah, all of a sudden we're selling
so bad.
Yeah, there was nobody in the stadium.
Yeah.
Every fan base has Fairweathers. They all do. That Fairweather. I mean, the Seattle Seahawks whole fan base are Fairweather fans, but that's another story. But yeah, I mean, every fan base has. I'm just glad. I hope my brother's team does good this year. I'm really looking forward to seeing Miami be competitive. I told him as long as we kick your ass when we play you this season, that's all that matters. But he actually wanted to go. I've never been on a plane before, and I've never seen a Niners game in person. And my brother's like, he goes, you want to go to Santa Clara this year? And I'm like, maybe. I'm not big on crowds because I have bad anxiety, but I'm like, we'll see. So we'll see how things play out. But I don't know, man. It'd be tough to go all the way across country just for us to lose, but we'll see. I'm still thinking about it. We touched on offensive line.
Yeah.
When you were talking about things that the Niners addressed last year when they traded or when they went into the 2nd round and they drafted Aaron Banks. How big of a concern is the offensive line for you? Because it's huge for me. I mean, other than Trent Williams, every other position is a question mark on that offensive line because we're still not 100% sure Alex Mack is coming back. And every other position, I mean, you look at right tackle, I mean, quad injury, I mean, that's a huge injury for a guy that uses his legs as his base to transfer power to his upper body. So,
Exactly.
what's your concern level on the offensive line? Because it's definitely a concern to me.
I mean, it's a concern to me too. And what I mean by concern isn't necessarily the plan that the 49ers have for the offensive line, but just how they'll produce. Because the 49ers, right, like plan wise, you said it. You said it perfectly. There are question marks. We know that Aaron Banks is going to start at left guard, but we don't know how he'll play. We haven't seen him. Does that mean that Aaron Banks is going to be bad in his rookie year? Absolutely not. But it's just question marks at the moment.
Yep.
Alex Mack, we hope that he's coming back. There's a strong indication that he will. But has he started his work, or has he started like working out this offseason? Because he was in the process of getting married. That just happened. He was in Ireland for a majority of the time. And so when is he start going to get back into football shape? And so that's another question. We also haven't heard of official confirmation. So I guess we can like leave that as a question mark until then. But even after that, right? He's 37. He probably retires after next season because that's
Right.
the duration of his contract or something like that. So he probably retires. We probably need a replacement for that as well. So it'll be a question mark either this year or next year. At right guard, we don't know who's going to start right now. Is it going to be Daniel Brunskill? Is it going to be Jalen Moore who's going to compete there? Like, regardless of who it is, it's still a question mark. I think Daniel Brunskill is better suited as a right tackle, a swing right tackle, like he played in 2020, and potentially even to compete at center should Alex Mack not be back, or should like an injury occur, something like that. So I do think that he probably slots in best as a replacement level player, as a backup at either tackle or at center. And then at right tackle, Mike McGlinchey coming off a quad injury. Do you have Daniel Brunskill come in to compete? Do you try and draft a guy? Do you trust guys like Colton McKivitz? Do you trust whoever it may be? Like, we have a lot of depth pieces, I think, on this offensive line, but at the starting positions, it's certainly a cause for concern because you don't know how it's going to be. And it's interesting. I think it's somewhat ironic, and I think it's somewhat like, I forget the word, but like there are two things with this offensive line and Trey Lance. With Trey Lance, you say, oh, he's mobile. So maybe you don't need as good of an offensive line when Trey Lance is starting because he's got the ability to get out of the pocket and make plays as opposed to Jimmy Garoppolo. But then you also say, this is his first year starting. You want him to be comfortable in the pocket, especially when he's transitioning to be a pocket passer, which he was in college. And we saw in week 16 where he wanted to stay in the pocket. He opted against running on certain lanes because he wanted to be a pocket passer and really learn how to play the quarterback position at the NFL level, which we saw progress. Do we want to take him out of that element right now by making him less comfortable? I don't think so. So that's like the two-way thing. And so I am concerned about the offensive line. But the one thing about our draft position, I don't think we draft offensive line at 62. I just don't think the value is there at 62, as opposed to the other positions where safety will be fairly talented at 62, edge will be fairly talented, and even wide receiver will be talented at 62. So that's the one thing. I do think that we can get talent. I also look at J.C. Treader is still available. I think that would be the best option. You slide in at right guard and then play center because the 49ers do value the center position a lot. They've gone veteran, right? When Kyle Shanahan first came, who did he get? Weston Richburg. Then Weston Richburg was injured. The one guy that they've played at center that they've drafted was Ben Garland. Ben Garland only played for about a season or half season, I think in 2019 and 2020, after Richburg retired. Then we got Alex Mack. So we like veterans. J.C. Treader fits that bill. And if it's post, I think May 2nd or May 10th, I forget the date, the 49ers don't have to worry about the compensation formula. And so they aren't charged with any loss of compensatory picks should they sign a guy like J.C. Treader, which we know they try and be methodical and they overthink things at times. That could be the date that we see a lot more movement for the 49ers as we saw in 2019.
You think they might do? You think they could make a move before training camp, something like that?
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
Like me personally, I don't think that this is nearly as complete of a roster as we'll see. Me personally, I think that after Garoppolo gets healthy and either he's cut, traded, whatever it is, after he's off the roster, once he gets healthy, because we acquire the extra $7.5 million, I do think that we start to fill up the roster even more because first of all, we're not hurt by the compensatory formula. We can also sign our draft picks at that time, and we know what our roster will look like following the draft. We can shore up the remaining holes and save over some leftover cap should we want to have midseason acquisitions, where now we'll have the cap space to do so, unlike a lot of other teams in the NFL. And so that's where we can send minimal draft capital to players on bigger contracts, like Odell Beckham last year, where he won't have to be cut. You just send a 7th round pick, and you get a player of that type of caliber to compete for a Super Bowl midseason.
Larry Krueger made a good point, and I think Brian Peacock from Locked On 49ers, he said the same thing you said. If the Niners have a little bit of money once they move on from Garoppolo, if they do, it's that, where are we this year? Do we look like we're going to compete for a Super Bowl or a playoff run? Okay, let's go make a midseason trade. So, we're all impatient. I'm impatient. I'm super impatient. But if that's what happens, say the Niners start the season out, I don't know, 6-2, 5-3, and they look like they're in the mix, and there's a chance to make the team better in a midseason trade, and you have the cap to do it, what the hell? So
exactly.
I'm an instantaneous. I like to be happy right now, but we'll see. Like you said, I don't think we're as complete of a team either as a lot of people think. I think we have certain positions that we're really deep at, but like I said, I mean, safety is a concern for me. Offensive line, pretty much left guard on, and edge rusher is a concern, and even wide receiver, if you think about it. I mean, kind of. I mean, not as big as the other positions, I think, because you could have all the depth you want in the world, but to have that a guy that can really tilt the defense and give Bosa the opportunity for some one-on-ones, which I think is something I don't think he's seen in a while, would be nice. So hopefully you're right. Hopefully we make some moves prior to training camp and we're active, but we'll see. I mean, like I said, there's so much time between now and that time. Oh, it's gonna fly by, but there's so much time still. I mean, it's first week in April, season training camp starts in late July. So let's pump the brakes a little bit, but let's get Deebo signed, and then we'll worry about everything else. Let's see where we got here. A question I've had for a couple people as I've had them on the last couple of weeks, and I'll ask you: do you think the 49ers have done enough to build around Trey Lance in free agency? Do you think they've done enough? Have they done too little? Have they done just right?
Honestly, I do think they've done enough. And here's what I'll tell you. The 49ers don't necessarily have to go through free agency and make moves to get better or to at least prepare Trey Lance to be a starter, because they already have the players. When you look at it, what are the main things that Trey Lance needed? Or let me back it up. Last year going into the draft, one claim I made on my YouTube channel, whichever quarterback the 49ers, or whichever, like the best quarterback kind of out of that class, at least in the short term, would be the one going to the 49ers. Why? Because that's the foundation best built for success out of the teams looking to draft a quarterback. And I think that still stands. You still have those key players that you had last year. Trent Williams, like you said, is a major cog in the offensive line, and he helps out because he plays the most important position. Trey Lance's blind side, where you might utilize your mobility if you have trouble on the right side of the offensive line, whereas you might not be able to see it as a quarterback on the left side of the offensive line, your blind side, which is, I think, the most like the best kind of part of the offensive line. And then wide receiver wise, you have an all-pro at Deebo Samuel. Hopefully he is on the team. But with the assumption that he is, you have an all-pro there, and then you have potentially Trey Lance's most favorite option as a wide receiver, the guy who continuously works out with in the offseason, in Brandon Ayuk, the guy who will probably develop the most chemistry with going into the season, Brandon Ayuk. So I think that those are two big options. Then Jawan Jennings is there as well, where Trey Lance, when a lot of people talk about that inaccuracy, Jawan Jennings is a big body. It's easier to hit him, and I think that will help out Trey Lance a little bit as well. George Kittle's there as well. You have four good enough weapons. And then I think the when you look strictly at free agency, I think the addition of Ray McCloud actually helps Trey Lance, because guess what? When you have a guy like that who can work out of the backfield as well, and also work on things like bubble screens and all these moves that happen at the line of scrimmage, what does that do? That takes pressure off your quarterback, because he doesn't necessarily have to work to make the plays. Instead, the plays are made by having people work in space. And that makes it easier on the quarterback, relieving some of the pressure alongside one of the best rushing attacks in all of football. Not only will you have Elijah Mitchell be more healthy now, you have the entire unit that's healthy. Jeff Wilson Jr., who had the meniscus tear and missed the first half of the season, he's fully healthy and he's back, which brings more continuity. Elijah Mitchell likely won't be relied on as much, which means that he can remain healthy over a 16-game period. Then you have JaMychal Hasty, who I don't expect to make the roster, but he's there. You have Trey Sermon, who was drafted probably to work with Trey Lance in somewhat of a zone run type of scheme inside the tackles and inside the guards. Like, you have a lot of these players with the potential to draft a receiver or a running back going to the draft, and even a tight end. So you'll probably have a good amount of weapons. Trey Lance has some of the best weapons in the entirety of the NFL, and he also has a defense which got better at certain facets, right? The cornerback room got better this year, which makes it easier on a quarterback because less pressure, because you can rely on that type of, on that defense to at least get stops and help you out as an offense. So I do think that the 49ers have done enough. Could they have done more? Of course, the offensive line, like we said, is a concern, but I do think that they've done enough. We saw it in the short kind of games that he played last year, but I do think that they've done enough where Trey Lance can be comfortable as a starting quarterback in this NFL.
The one thing about Trey Lance that I'm looking for, and before I go on, I just want to say hello to Beto, Niner Sickness Podcast. He's the OG of the OGs of 49er fans. So I just want to give him props. He's been in a game a lot longer than the rest of us. He said he's been to every 49er Super Bowl that we won. I think that's what he said. Yeah,
every
that's ridiculous.
One? Wow.
I think so. That's freaking. That's now. I have no clout. There's nothing I could say to ever reach that space. So, but yeah, he's the OG.
I haven't
of
been
the
alive
OG.
for like half of them. So that's crazy.
Yeah, my nephew was born in '95, and he's like, "Man, we haven't won since the year I was born." I'm like, "Bro, tell me about it." It's like you haven't. He's only seen the 2 losses, and he's been devastated. He's like, "At least you get to see." Yeah, there you go. Sir, I've seen all 5 Super Bowl, and that's awesome. There's nothing we could say to ever match that. Yeah, the one thing I wanted to say about Trey Lance is Trey Lance, for all that he could do down the field and his ability to make plays with his legs, I want to see where he matures in the short passing game. And you're right. Easy completions, give him easy completions, whether it's bubble screens or, short crossers or any of those type of things. Jimmy was pretty proficient at it when he wasn't throwing it to linebackers. So it's just a matter of if Trey can get that part of his game down, that intermediate stuff down, I think we're set because, a lot of that offense with Jimmy was right in front of you. It was right in front of the offensive line. Like, Jimmy just didn't have the ability to throw the ball to the outside. And when he got injured, it was even worse. But yeah, that's the biggest thing I want to see from Trey coming into the preseason and early on in the season is if he's, calm down, as Mike Holmgren used to say to Brett Favre, no more rocket balls, please. Like, yeah, it's okay to have a good arm and whip it in there a couple times. It's sometimes, dude, take a little velocity off that thing. You don't need to throw it that hard because there's some dudes won't catch them, and in the cold, forget it. So, yeah, that's what I'm looking for from big number 5. I think he'll be good though. Real quick, like I said, I didn't follow the draft. I haven't followed the draft too much. Any quick draft crushes you want to touch on real quickly?
Yeah, so let's just look at the major positions for the 49ers. The one you said earlier was safety. Looking at it, at least realistic options for the 49ers. 2 that pop out are Nick Cross out of Maryland, who I talked about earlier, and Kirby Joseph. If you want a Jaquiski Tartt replacement, Kirby Joseph fits that bill. He's a imposing safety at 6 foot, 200 pounds. He's a little smaller, but he's imposing. And that's something you want in the run game. I also do think that he's got the ball skills to be a free safety, which the 49ers should to kind of go for. And I think the versatility where you're imposing, but also a solid guy in the passing game is what the 49ers need at safety opposite of Jimmy Ward. Kirby Joseph fits that bill out of Illinois. And then Nick Cross, the best athlete, or at least one of the best athletes at the safety position. Like I said, ran the 4.34. He's good in pass coverage for sure. And he also has the ability to play the versatile role that the 49ers require at safety. I think he'd be a good pick as well. Those 2. Then when we go to edge, I think there are a good amount of options at all the positions or all the places where the 49ers draft. You try and go early round in the 2nd and the 3rd round. Some guys that pop off are Myjai Sanders out of Cincinnati. He's not the best run defender for sure, but as a pass rusher, I think that he's great at that 250 kind of 260 kind of build. He's got long arms, and I do think that he can work both inside and outside. I don't think Cincinnati utilized him the best. I think they utilized him too much on the inside and also in pass coverage, but instead as a pure edge rusher, I do think that Myjai Sanders possesses a lot of potential opposite of Nick Bosa. Could be a day one starter if he's drafted early in the second round. If we're going to later rounds, guys like D'Angelo Malone kind of pop out, and guys like Dominique Robinson out of Miami, Ohio kind of pop out. Those are some fourth round kind of guys where D'Angelo Malone, he's around 240 pounds, but he possesses elite speed. And that's something that the 49ers could definitely covet opposite of Nick Bosa. Dominique Robinson has some of the better potential in the later rounds in this class. So if you want that kind of long-term option opposite of Nick Bosa, those are some guys that you could look for in the fourth round or maybe even in the fifth round.
I'm big on guys that could just do one thing well, rush the passer. Right. Bring them in on second and long or third downs. Give Nick Bosa a chance to, like I said, get some one-on-ones. Nick Bosa gets his ass kicked every game. I mean, people are like, he looks so tired. That defensive line was spent by the time that championship game. They had 20 games. They look tired. So it would be nice to give him somebody. The D Ford, I think, was probably the worst signing that the Niners have ever made in their existence, as far as paying for a guy and not getting anything in return whatsoever, other than people say, "Well, he helped us get us to the Super Bowl." Yeah, but I mean, for the amount of money that they're paying him, and they're still going to pay him even when he's not playing, it was bad. So I want to say something real quick to Beto real quick. He said he was sending out, said, I really love all my 49er content creators family. You guys rock. Likewise, Beto. Likewise, Celts, No Border Sports, 49er minded, Jay in the Bay, all you guys are great. Rohan, now that I've had a chance to meet you, I just love how supportive everybody is and loving. It's great, dude. I started this like almost 3 years ago, and I was so afraid. I'm still nervous. I get nervous before any time I go live, but it's always made easier by the people that support you and the people that you network with and you get to know. So
definitely
awesome.
Definitely.
Let's see here. What's your thought on the coaching moves? 14 new coaches. One of them that comes to mind to me is Brian Griese. Kyle Shanahan explained it the other day that he's so intelligent and knows so much about the quarterback position. He was always so well prepared. He said he was one of the smartest football players he's ever met. And then you take into consideration that I didn't know Gary Kubiak had a son that was in coaching. Clay Kubiak is also going to be part of the staff.
Clay, not Clint.
Yeah,
Clay Kubiak.
Yeah. It's what's your take on this? This retooling or whatever you want to call it of the coaching staff.
To be honest, the coaching staff, it's been through a lot this offseason, right? We went from D'Amico Ryans and Mike McDaniel getting coaching interviews to us being afraid we'd lose them. We lost one of the two. D'Amico Ryans stayed. And then obviously the amount of coaching turnover, right? Richard Hightower is gone. A good amount of coaches went with Mike McDaniel to Miami. We also lost a couple last year when Robert Saleh went to the New York Jets. Mike LaFleur turned to be the offensive coordinator there. So we've had a lot of turnover over the last 2 years. And I think that, honestly, our coaching staff is better. Like, it's crazy to say, but I honestly think that this is the most underrated improvement of this team going into 2022. And one thing I'll say that I pointed out specifically to Brian Griese, right? What did Kyle Shanahan and company do this offseason, at least at the primary positions? Brian Griese is the quarterback's coach. Leonard Hankerson is the wide receivers coach. And then I'm forgetting the third person on Anthony Lynn, of course. Anthony Lynn, running backs coach, assistant head coach. Those three coaches all played in the NFL. That's something that Kyle Shanahan said, at least at the owners' meeting, that was really important when he hired Brian Griese. He said, in the quarterback's room, it's me and Bobby Slowick. Both of us don't have experience, at least handling in-game things. Having a guy in Trey's ear, he specifically pointed at Trey Lance. For those of you, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to stay on the roster, people. He specifically pointed at Trey Lance, and he said, having a guy in Trey's ear that knows what Trey's going through and has the experience was important. Yep. He added that at the quarterback room. He added that at the wide receiver room, promoting Leonard Hankerson to wide receivers coach. And he added that with the running back room because Anthony Lynn was obviously your running back before turning into a head coach and now the assistant head coach for the 49ers. So I think that that's really important. You have guys who have experienced what these players are going through now in the ears of all of these players. I think that that's really important for the 49ers. And Anthony Lynn, one of the best signings that we had all offseason. Yep. Not only has Anthony Lynn produced at the running back position as a player, he produced as a coach, right? When you look at it, Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler were one of the most formidable duos when he was in Los Angeles as a head coach. In Detroit, what happens? DeAndre Swift, after a rookie season, DeAndre Swift goes out there last year, one of the best pass catching options in all of football from the running back position last year. While his running stats weren't as impressive just because the Detroit Lions obviously regressed from, 2020. His receiving stats out of the backfield were definitely good. And that just shows some hope that the 49ers are going to have a receiving option out of the backfield in 2022. And so the rest of the main other guy was Brian Schneider, obviously our special teams coach. I think Brian Schneider was a great hiring. In Seattle, he had top 10 units over the last couple of years that he had there. We were 23rd in according to, I think it was Football Outsiders, according to Football Outsiders in terms of special teams value. Richard Hightower and company were 23rd in 2021. That's not really a great unit. We want at least a top half unit in the NFL, and we had that previously, but Richard Hightower really hasn't improved during his time here. It was essentially a firing. I know they said mutual, like a mutual parting, but it was essentially him getting fired. The 49ers upgrade there with Brian Schneider, who comes from the Jacksonville Jaguars, where he was probably seen poorly just because that team isn't good. Now he comes to the 49ers, he can work his magic here, and we now have a better unit there. So I think we upgraded all three parts of our unit by maintaining D'Amico Ryans, keeping him around for another year, and then on the offensive side, Leonard Hankerson being promoted, Anthony Lynn being hired, and Brian Greasy being hired. At least there's the potential for just another great coaching staff under Kyle Shanahan.
You really have sold me on this coaching staff, because I was a little question. I had a lot of questions, but the more you kind of explained it and kind of laid it out there. Yeah, I think they're more talented on the coaching staff, and I think they have coaches that are more relatable with the players that they have. And sky's the limit for Trey, and I really hope that the acquisition of Brian Greasy does wonders for the kid. It doesn't seem like he has a giant ego. Seems like he's all about, as Larry Krueger always says, he's all about the classroom and getting better in the classroom. And football, it's more than just talent. You have to be smart from the neck up. So he said something last year that I was like, man, I love this kid. He said he always felt like he needed a notepad every time he was around like Rich Scangarello or Kyle Shanahan, because he felt like he'd always learn something. And I'm like, freaking awesome. Like, that's what I want to hear from a young quarterback. Real quick, I just want to say hi to Mariah, 49er faithfully. She's in here all the time. Where is she? And I never actually say hi to her. So hello, Mariah, 49er faithfully.
Great podcast she and TL have there.
Oh, I got to go check that out. Okay, I seen her. Oh, she's got her own channel too. Jeez, what am I doing? Sorry, Mariah. I did not know. Now I have another person that I got to go check out. I'm always like scouting the internet for all these great podcasts and content creators. So now I got to go check out Mariah's channel. What is the name of the channel?
I don't know the name off the top of my head. I think Mariah can comment it, but
okay.
I know that her and TL have their own podcast. I tuned in a couple of times. Great content for sure.
Sweet. Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you to Mariah for being a supporter all the time. All of you guys in the chat today. I thank you very much for coming in here. Couple quick questions that are more just opinions. I know maybe some people are not going to like to hear them very much, but the first one I'll ask you is, you think Kaepernick deserves another chance in the National Football League?
Honestly, yeah. I mean, like, I haven't heard a reason why not. And here's what I'll say. Like, the NFL gives opportunities to anyone and everybody. We saw Tim Tebow, after a baseball career, come back and get a spot on in a training camp roster last year. And I think, like, there isn't harm, right, in bringing a guy like Kaepernick back, who's shown that he can, like, he still has a part of his craft that he continues to work every day. I think that if you give an opportunity, like, he's had a bunch of workouts, and obviously he was blackballed by the league, and that might be a little bit of the reason. But, like, I was impressed by, like, I know people don't hear it a lot because we're 49er fans, but I was impressed by Pete Carroll last week. He called out the owners. He said the reason that there's not a lot of minority head coaches is because the owners don't want people who aren't like them. I'd assume he was referring to because they were white owners, traditional white owners, who don't want what they like. And obviously owners are irate. But a guy like Pete Carroll really doesn't care what other people think. So that's why I think it's important to note that he has been in contact with Kaepernick. And I think that Kaepernick, at least, like, like obviously we haven't seen him play in an NFL game in a while, right? Since he was last with the 49ers. I think he probably gets the brunt of the blame for the season in which the 49ers went like 2-14 or 3, whatever the record was. But it necessarily wasn't his fault. That was just a terrible roster. And I think that, like, honestly, there's really no harm in giving him a tryout, right, at a training camp or even in the early part of the offseason program. If it doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out. But at least he should be on some sort of training camp going into 2022 with the amount of quarterbacks that are there. Like Josh Rosen, we've seen so many different quarterbacks get opportunities time and time again when they haven't consistently proven that they can play at the NFL level. And the thing is, Kaepernick proved that he could play at the NFL level for a period of time. And while his play has dropped off, obviously, given the amount of time since it's been, I think that like that at least warrants some consideration for giving him a training camp invite.
The thing with Kaepernick is I understand why a lot of people had an issue with him, not necessarily for what was being protested or what causes he was fighting for. I have no problem with that at all. And I believe what a lot he had to say was true. I think a lot of the issue was just that owners have a right to, it's a place of business. It's not a place to protest. And it's their right. I mean, it's their team. It's their money. He seems like he's a little bit more reserved than he's been. I have no problem what you do off the field on your own time, whatever causes you want to be a part of and support. Totally fine with that. But when you're in the building on the grounds of the team, you're at work. You're there to perform and be a player. So, not saying that he has to stop doing anything. But just he seems a little bit more, I'd not say mellow, but he's an older guy now. He just says he knows that there's probably not a chance he's going to start, and he's okay with that. He said, be a backup and kind of show the league what he can do, and maybe eventually he gets another starting shot. Hey man, at this point, there's a lot of bad quarterbacks in the NFL. Yeah. I think he has something that he can offer with his mobility and his arm still. Not saying that he's going to succeed or that he's going to do anything, but if I was the league, I would honestly give the guy a chance if possible. Even if he's a second stringer, whatever. And I think
definitely.
Yeah, I'm definitely for it. I wasn't always, but I've definitely, my mind has changed. But there's a lot of people that disagree, and that's fine too.
And the thing is, like around Kaepernick. Oh, my bad.
No, I said we all have opinions. And
the thing about Kaepernick, right? When you look at him, the one argument I could say probably against giving him a training camp invite is just how the league has gone. In that the league has gotten a lot younger in recent years. A lot of there's a lot more intrigue in giving a guy a chance that has potential, whereas Kaepernick is 34 right now. And so do you really give a 34-year-old a training camp invite to be a backup? Not necessarily always the case, given the amount of young talent that comes out of the draft, and a lot of people just wanting to see, can we get potential out of a guy, like out of an undrafted free agent, or maybe out of a guy who's been like a one-year player in the NFL. And that's the one argument I could say. But apart from that, I don't necessarily know any other significant argument at the moment, just because you see a guy continuously working, you see a guy, and it doesn't really hurt to give you the opportunity. I'll say
that. Brian Culp is absolutely not. Let him play arena ball. Like I said, everybody has a right to their opinion. I have no problem with that. I think it's hilarious. My last question to you, and then I'm gonna let you go.
Go for it.
Yes or no?
Frank Gore. Oh, here's what I'll say about the Hall of Fame talk. Obviously, I'm a young guy, and Hall of Fame isn't really one thing that I'm the best at personally, just because I don't know the exact criteria that you try and meet. I think it's so subjective. The Hall of Fame, guys like Patrick Willis, who have been they were phenomenal in their careers, albeit short careers. Why isn't he in the Hall of Fame yet? I don't understand it. But it's so subjective. Just looking statistically, though, right? Frank Gore, third in rushing yards all time. The top 10 have made the Hall of Fame. Then I think the stat that people pointed out, 1,200 scrimmage yards in 10 plus seasons.
Right.
He had 12 seasons. The next guys were like Barry Sanders, and I think the top 5 or top 10 of that list has also made the Hall of Fame. So history shows that he should make the Hall of Fame, although it is subjective. And that's the one argument, because a lot of people say he's never been the best at his position during his time in the NFL. But what he's proven, and it's interesting, right? Because how do you factor in longevity? I think Frank Gore is an interesting case because we've never seen a case like Frank Gore before. Like, he's the one who has to break precedent now, because we haven't seen a guy who's played this long, albeit not being the best at his position for any time in his NFL career. So what I'll say is history shows that he should make the Hall of Fame. And while he was on bad 49er teams, I don't think that that's hindered other people from making the Hall of Fame before. So I'd say yes, that he's in the Hall of Fame, just because that's what statistics have shown.
I'll say I can understand some of the different arguments. Richard Sherman says that, everybody's getting a Hall of Fame invite nowadays. He's like, it's not the same anymore. So I get that argument. But I'll just say, if he's top 3 all time in rushing yards, top 3, that to me, that's automatic into the Hall of Fame. In the history of the league, top 3. I mean, that's stupid good. You could say that he played too many years and that he padded his stats or whatever. Whatever, dude. Like, I understand the argument of like, he was never the best. He was never the top guy like the Emmitt Smith or the Barry Sanders or the Eric Dickerson type. But I mean, top 3 all time, you got to put him in. Is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? I don't know.
Probably
is he a
not,
Hall of?
But yeah.
And exactly, Kelts. He tore his knee twice in college. So the Niners, he was a 3rd round pick. A lot of people thought the Niners picked him too high, considering he blew out his knee twice. And then he was a little dinged up early in his career, and then he was pretty healthy after. I saw an interesting article before I let you go that said that he came into the league very selfish, and that he was worried about his own stats.
I know what you mean.
And he was worried about getting the ball and getting yards. And when he didn't get them, he would pout and stomp in and out of the locker room. And through the course of his career, he became more of a team first guy. And he really cared about winning. They said losing really affected him a lot. Like, it would really piss him off. And then as he grew into his self and became, with Pro's Pro, he became all about the team and all about winning and all about being a great teammate. So I like how that somebody came out with like the not Hollywood story and was like, yeah, he was actually kind of a selfish guy when he came into the league. I like hearing stuff like that. I like the realness, like, yeah, he was kind of a prick. And then he became like a really good teammate. Some guys are in it for a while for the statistics. Look at some of the NBA players. The season might be over, but they're trying to become the scoring leader or whatever. And that's all they care about. I'm like, that's so sad, but it is what it is. But yeah, Frank Gore to me is a Hall of Famer for sure, but it's not my decision to make. It's a bunch of curmudgeony old men who make that decision. So we'll see. Maybe he's a first ballot and he makes it in this year. And I don't think he'd make it in this year. He's got to wait 5 years. That's right. So, but hey, listen, Bashar, I called you Bashar. If he's still in the chat, got a kick out of that. Rohan, I had a blast. You are super, super smart and well-spoken. I should have just muted my mic the rest of the time and just let you go. I had a blast having you on. If you want to let everybody know again where to find you and what you're doing, and I'll let you have the floor.
Yeah. So for those of you guys who don't know me yet, my Twitter is at RohanSport27. I am a writer for the 49ers Web Zone. I try and produce daily content there. So if you guys like article content, be sure to hit up that and be sure to just check out my content there. I tweet a lot about 49ers related stuff and NFL related news. I also have my podcast, 49ers Red Zone Podcast. Be sure to hit my link in the description. My YouTube channel, you'll see the podcast up there as well as other clips that I just try and get out for sure. Thank you, Aaron, obviously, for having me. Honor to come on this show. A lot of great people have been on the show, and I'm glad that you reached out to me and I'm able to be a guest on this show. For sure, enjoy the opportunity.
I appreciate it. It's been a while since I had a live stream, so I was a little nervous today. So I appreciate you holding it down for me and letting me work out the kinks. Yeah, it's weird. No matter how many times you do this, if you have a little bit of time between the last time you've done it, always have butterflies. It's just weird because once that thing goes live, you start stuttering and stammering, and it's just like, ugh. So, yeah, I appreciate you for coming on. I've seen you on Twitter for a long time. I don't know why I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I'm old though, so you got to give me the benefit of the doubt. But
You're good.
Thanks for everybody in the chat for coming in, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for everybody for the support. You're here on your own free will. I didn't have to yell at you to make you come into the chat. So thanks a lot for that. And
be sure to subscribe.
Yeah,
subscribe to Aaron.
And
first
subscribe to
First Take.
Go to Rohan's channel as well and subscribe. You actually have 2 YouTube channels, right?
Yeah, so we have the 49ers Red Zone podcast channel, and then we have my personal channel as well.
Okay, because I have your Twitter. I have your Twitter and your channel in my description. I didn't tag the other channel as well, but I know that you have one other one too. So
yeah.
Again, thanks for coming on. Thank you everybody for popping in on the stream. I think I'll let you guys know. I mean, if some news drops or anything, I'll be sure to pop on and talk to you guys. But till next time, everyone, stay safe and healthy. And I know a lot of people make fun of me for saying this, but I'll see you guys on the flip side. See ya.